everyone. This is Jamie Marboe Nichols, and I am the host of the Heart of Dentistry Podcast, where we take the ache out and put the heart back in to our dental profession. Please join me as I interview various guests who have opinions and also solutions to what is going on in our profession and helping us put the heart back in. Hi, everyone. This is Jamie Marboe Nichols, and I am here with the Heart of Dentistry. And we are trying to take the ache out and put the heart back in. And I have a feeling my next two guests, are going to do exactly that. I have Jessica Gore with Tasty Clean, and I have Branden Hill with Accidental Sales Pros. Thank you for coming and joining me, Jessica and Branden.
Hi,
Thank you for
Jamie.
having
Thank you for
me.
having us.
Yes.
Yes, this is so exciting. So I've seen you, met you through various avenues, different conventions and things like that. But what really brought us together was the wonderful CultureCon uh, that convention that we all went to, and you two were on a panel that really raised my hairs on my arms and really made me want to dig in deeper and get you guys on my podcast for a lot of good reasons. So, the first thing I want to do is just have you introduce yourself, Jessica, and then Branden, and tell us a little bit about yourself and what made you be asked to be on that CultureCon panel.
Well, thank you
Jessica.
so much. Thank you, Branden. So it was a pleasure to meet you there, and I'm so happy to hear that you were inspired by it, because that was kind of the goal that Branden and I had for this panel. So my name is Jessica Gore, and I am the creator of Tasty Clean. And basically the way this all came about, I've always been passionate about diversity. First of all, as a woman in business, I've hit a lot of hurdles with diversity. I also have two children who are of mixed race, and thinking about their future has always weighed heavily on me. And I am also a person of a very diverse cultural background. My mom comes from Israel. I have German and Russian and Irish and all of these things in me. So I've kind of always identified with quite a few different cultures. So to me, I saw a lot of issues in the dental world. Branden and I both were part of a organization that highlighted diversity in dentistry. And we were talking one day and just realized that we had a lot of similar experiences, but from different perspectives. And people were very comfortable coming to us, speaking to us about these things, but they weren't really having these conversations with the people they should have been having them with. And at that point, we kind of had this aha moment, like, if we could just kind of get in front of people and encourage these conversations and create some real change, that would be really amazing. And that's kind of where this all was born.
Yeah, I loved it. When we had the break at lunchtime, I just wanted to sit next to you guys and just, So Branden,
That
go
was
ahead and
amazing.
give us introduce yourself and give us your background.
Sure. I'm Branden Hill. I'm the founder and CEO of Accidental Sales Pros, which is a strategic advisory and consulting firm that serves the dental industry. To put it simply, I help entrepreneurs and executives sell better. And I can talk a little bit about that a little later. But my background, I've been working in the dental space for 6 years, but I've been in helping companies, people with sales leadership, sales direction, and revenue growth for 2 decades in some form or fashion. So like I said, the last 6 of those years have been in dentistry. And they say once you go dental, you never leave. And I don't think I'm leaving. So that's me. To answer your question about the event that we connected at most recently, everything Jessica said was true. We were part of an organization that helped make some inroads with diversity and culture in dentistry. And we started to notice certain things from the way people even interacted with us in terms of that organization. And we had an aha moment that there were some conversations that she and I could individually and collectively as a team start spearheading that could be very valuable for all the stakeholders in the dental world, just from an educational standpoint, as well as a way to affect some positive change. And I was asked to be a part of CultureCon to specifically talk about culture in terms of sales and growing a business. and how the culture of the business, not necessarily just the cultures of the people, but the culture of the business is made up of all these diverse people. And the way to strengthen that is to have a real fine appreciation for all of your human capital. So that's how I got involved. That's part of what I like to do and contribute to this world, dental and otherwise. And happy to talk about that a little more today with you, Jamie.
Right. I'm so happy to have you guys here. Um, this, one of the reasons, and some people might be going, okay, are we talking about racial differences? Are we talking about, but we're not talking about just diversity when it comes to race. We're talking about diversity in the dental practice with our team, our patients, each other, and it's like it could be age, it could be gender, it could be, whatever that might be, to give us some biases of the other person and some judgments that a lot of people want to say, oh, I'm not judgmental, I'm not, but even me being a seasoned coach and speaker and hygienist by degree, I have even felt it. And so, what do you see, whether it's in the dental practice itself, if it's within maybe other areas of dentistry, like cells, like what you're saying, Branden, and alluding to? What are some of the other judgments and cultural differences that you think people are dealing with that maybe we don't even know about? Branden, why don't you go ahead and start?
Sure. Sure. I mean, your opening hits the nail on the head. Diversity and culture is not just about race. That's obviously the low-hanging fruit to discuss. And that's always going to be very important because obviously of history and the dynamics in our country and in the world when it comes to that. But if you really want to tackle the big ugly aspect of diversity, which is trying to figure out the race thing, you need to practice with some other things. And there's so many other things that make us different as humans and make us diverse as humans that I think everyone should look at those things as an opportunity to use some, to build those muscles. So for example, if I as a black man join an organization that's all black male, let's say I join a black fraternity in college. Okay, obviously there's some things that we're going to have in common because we're black men who are college students. Okay, but the level of diversity within a group like that is profound. Everybody is not going to understand each other. There are going to be people that be at odds with each other over the income level that they come from and the type of family they come from. There's going to be things like sexual orientation. There's going to be things like physical appearance and likes and dislikes of art, music, and sports. There's going to be differences on how to handle the big issues that you may deal with all equally as black males. I can't assume that if I, as a black male, get into a group with a bunch of other black males, that we all have the same perspectives on even the pain points that we share mutually because we're so different. So
Yeah.
I think if a lot of people, whether it's, in a community organization or a group or a club that they've joined because it's like-minded people, if people can even in those environments start flexing their diversity and culture muscles and understanding how to understand those different perspectives, maybe they can start getting to the point where they can deal with the bigger issues from outside of their, race or culture.
Yeah, I love that you bring that up because I think that there are some assumptions on a certain level of if you are this just because we look alike, we are going to have similar experiences. I think that's an or similar upbringing, whatever it might be. And I love that you bring that up because that right there is probably the easiest thing to think, that is probably a mistake that we're trying to erase. I would say also when it comes to maybe sexual orientation, there is a lot of assumptions that are wrong based on what people perceive as to why you're sexually oriented a certain way and why not. And it kind of makes me go bonkers, to be honest. So Jessica, what do you have to add to this whole, because I'm just going to be I'm going to play the devil's advocate sort of. So Jessica, I'm going to look at you and I'm going to look at me, and other than maybe age, I'm going to think that we look similar, have some similarities, and yet we don't at
Right.
all. Your
Well,
intro
I
kind of
think
points that out.
I think that's one of the key things about diversity that is sorely misrepresented, right? So everybody's like, it's a race thing, right? It's Black people and white people, and how do we work together? And that is so far from the truth. And one of the things that we really need to understand is that diversity goes so far beyond that. As women, we have diverse organizations strictly for us, right? There is neurodiversity. There is lots of other races. There are so many other things that lead to these conversations that I think a lot of people tend to just shut it down as, oh, we don't need to work on that. Like our racial relations or whatever you want to call it within our team is fine. And I think it's just a very closed-minded way of thinking of things, because first of all, this is something that you should be regularly, constantly working on. It's not something that you just one and done Band-Aid, right? It's something that should be a team building thing ongoing. And I think that you can't really do that if you don't even understand what diversity is at its core. And that's one of the key things that's where you need to start, is you need to understand diversity as a whole to tackle the problem. And it's not a quick fix. So
I love that. Let's just jump in. So I love that you
yeah,
brought up neurodiversity. I have a family member that goes by neurodiversity.
yeah,
And
I'm neurospicy, so I get it.
and he obviously feels comfortable in sharing things with me. But in order to even train him about, it's like, you're sharing it with me for a reason. So quit saying, don't judge me. And I'm like, I'm not judging you, or you wouldn't be sharing this with you. It's the way I can understand you. And thank you for being honest with me. So how do we rip that Band-Aid off, and how do we continue? What are some suggestions? Let's start with and I guess you could say it's interaction with patients. Let's just stick with dentistry right now. It's interaction with patients and it's interaction with our team. I feel that we work really hard as healthcare professionals to understand our patients and to make our patients always feel welcome and make them always feel, that we welcome anyone and everyone into our practice. What are some of the pitfalls that maybe either of you, now working 6 years in dentistry, Branden, and I don't know how long, Jessica, you've been in dentistry, but I'm going to guess for a while. What are some of the pitfalls or things to maybe avoid or pay attention to when it comes to our patients? Go
You want
ahead,
to go first?
Branden.
I'll go first. Okay. So first, let me preface this by saying this. There are strategies that you can employ to give your patients a better experience, but you won't be able to keep them up or keep them up without burnout for you and your team if you don't first practice them with you and your team.
Practice with
Because
what?
practice these strategies with you and your team.
Thank you
Anything that
for
you want
Starts with the team.
anything you want your patients to experience, your team has to experience it first. And
Okay.
it'll make it a lot easier on everybody.
I
So
love that. So maybe we should start with the team first then.
let's start with the team.
Mhm.
So I think that, and Jessica and I have talked about this. Jessica, I know, has some really great ideas on specific things that you can do. But I think get to know you sessions in a non-stressful scenario can be great. It could be fun games. You can find these games online, right? And it doesn't have to be about anything deep. You start off just talking about just likes and dislikes and, places you like to vacation and, things you like, games you like to play as a kid growing up, your favorite types of foods. Just get to know you. Nothing deep about race or sexual orientation, nothing that might make people feel uncomfortable to come out the gates with, but just make that a part of it. When you bring in a new team member, you can have a system that says, hey, listen, we love to get to know everybody. We play this fun get to know you game with all our new team members, and that can break the ice for a new team member now feeling part of the team. Team outings should be done whatever cadence you think it can be done. It doesn't have to be a grandiose thing. You don't have to go climb a mountain or something, but it could be, obviously happy hours. I would love a team outing mountain climbing, but I'm crazy like that. But it could be, it could be like a game night. It could be going to a fun venue for, just a couple appetizers and and things like that. So I think just being intentional about getting to know your team, encouraging your team to share who they are outside of work can be very beneficial. So I'll start there. I know Jessica has some really cool ideas because we talked about them earlier.
And I'm going to add here really quick, if you're one that's feeling some judgments and feeling what they have a certain, I hate to say this, because you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And so let's just say Dr. Johnson is trying to do some of these things and she has certain team members that regularly, routinely don't show up. Isn't there some responsibility for the people that maybe complain or say people just don't understand me because I don't look like them or I don't they have a little bit of responsibility to show up too?
Absolutely. Go ahead, Jessica. I'll let you take that.
Well, I mean, I think everybody has a responsibility to show up. And I think a lot of this starts with you as a person, right? Like a lot of people want to assume that they're being judged. Like in your case, I'm not judging you. And maybe because this topic is so taboo, we just want to assume that I'm being judged. And at the end of the day, you have to heal within yourself and do the self work as a person to understand that, you know, it really doesn't matter what other people think of you. You know, be proud of your neurospiciness. I'll tell anybody I talk to, I'm neurospicy and it makes me who I am. And I don't care what you think about it because it doesn't matter to me, right? So at the end of the day, we all have to be accountable for our own feelings, our own emotions, our own actions. And a lot of the times those issues start internally with us and we have to work on ourselves, right? And maybe that's part of a team building experience as well. And maybe that is something that we need to tell our staff. You won't be judged. This is a safe space. You're free to speak however you feel, but you have to show up because we can't help you if you don't show up. And it has to be, I think, mandatory for people to show up to these things.
I agree to a certain extent. I really do. I love that. I didn't even think about this, but you know, as a coach, I was telling you guys before we got on this conversation that, or on this recording, that as a coach, people hire me as a dental hygienist, but I always warn them that I am actually more of a culture and character of the team kind of coach. And that, yes, while I can talk about pathogens and proper instrumentation and perfect handoffs, that'll all go to the wayside if we don't have a good, strong, safe culture, which is the characteristic of the team. And one of the things I've been doing now for like 3 years, maybe longer, is that I have a simple breakout where there's 3 to 4 people in a group, and I come up with 3 simple questions. And like it's something as simple as, do you have siblings? Yes or no? And if so, what number are you? So that's one question. And then another question might be something like, what is your favorite holiday and why? And then what is an experience or something that has happened to you that has forever changed your life? So we go from simple yes or no, how many, to favorite holiday, to something. And I cannot believe what comes out of those 3 simple questions when they come back. They don't have to share. Lots of times I hear laughter around the office in different rooms, and lots of times I see people coming back with tissues in their hands. Because, and just for one example, there was a Hispanic assistant who was fairly new to the team, and she spoke English fluently. She was second generation, but came to this United States uh, when she was 3 or something like that. But she said, or 5, she said that her favorite holiday was Christmas. And then something that had impacted her, which led right into it, is that her father still lived in Mexico and she hadn't spent Christmas with her father since she was 5. And that just, everyone was like, oh, they'll never think of Christmas the same now because they'll always think of this team member not having Christmas since she was 5 with her father and she was in her 20s. So I think that you're onto something, just something simple like that. And you don't have to have a coach to do that. That's something anyone can do.
I think you hit on something, Jamie, that's really important to highlight is that yes, you need to show up, but you don't need to share, right? Not everybody is comfortable with sharing, and that's okay. You should share at your own pace. I personally believe in just ripping band-aids off, right? So get uncomfortable, but
That's the
have a
spicy.
good, yeah. You have to have courageous conversations. This is not comfortable. And I know a lot of people, well, it's an uncomfortable topic and I don't want to talk about it. It's all over and it's uncomfortable. Well, you can't get comfortable with it until you get uncomfortable, right? So until
Yeah.
you have a uncomfortable conversation with the intention of growth and healing and good intentions, nothing's going to happen if we keep just kind of skirting it because it's uncomfortable. It has to be uncomfortable. But I think it's also important to have everybody there together. And I know small breakout groups are great for what they're good for. But unless you have everybody together, hearing everything that everybody is going through, you're kind of missing out on the big picture, right? So you get your team all together, you sit down and you have a meeting, right? And you have the uncomfortable conversations, you allow the people who want to participate, and you will see that there will be some people who are much more vocal and some who are just kind of sitting there soaking it all in. And I don't think that one takes away more than the other. I just think that some people have different comfort levels and different styles of learning, right? So some people learn more by hearing other people's stories, and some people benefit more from telling their story. And you have to allow everybody to participate at their own comfort level. And there's some really easy ways to be very impactful. One of the activities that I really like is like a privilege walk, is what it's called, where you line everybody up in a horizontal line. Nobody has to say anything. And you simply ask questions. And when somebody agrees, did you go to college? You take a step forward. And those who didn't, take a step back. And then at the end of this activity, you can really learn a lot about the group without having said anything. And it can be a real eye-opener. And sometimes, like you said, just hearing somebody else's story can profoundly change you because you've never thought about this point of view from somebody else's point of view, right? So now you're seeing a whole new world that you didn't even know existed. And empathy
I
can
like
create the
that.
biggest change.
Yeah, I
Empathy
like
is
that.
the
I've done
best
that
way
with
for
something
change.
else, but not diversity. So, because I've done
Mhm.
that exercise, it's always been about hygiene.
Right,
So
right.
I
So throw
love that.
diversity into it and see what you can
Yeah.
find out.
So Brandon, how do we go from the people that are naive that this is even happening within their practice to opening up the conversation to where, because like, let's just say, well, we don't have a problem. Everybody here gets along. We all just, if they had any problems, I have an open door policy. They could come to me.
Well,
How do we take that first step?
well, first thing, and first of all, I love the privilege walk idea, Jessica. I just love
I
it. I
do.
love
I
it. I
love
love it.
it.
It's a visual impacting thing that, and I've seen them done. So here's why this shouldn't be as hard as it is. Okay, in a healthcare setting, because if you are in a healthcare setting, you're already trained to diagnose and even anticipate disease. Okay. So you should be able to anticipate that there could be cultural, team, diversity, uncomfortability issues, even if you don't see them. It's like plaque under the gum line. You may not see it right away, but it's there. So I think if you start
Great
off,
comparison, by the way.
okay, I knew the hygienist in you would like that. So
I love it.
so I think, if you are trying to run a dental office per se, I think you need to start from the premise that, yes, there's some things beneath the surface that I don't see, and I need to be prepared for that. I need to be prepared to diagnose and treat that. It could be bringing in a coach like Jamie. It could be me just kind of looking up some strategies online and just figuring out some softball things that, like we talked about so far on this show. But I think it's really about that anticipation. The other thing I'm going to say is to take some of because we always talk about, the team member that's uneasy. the business owner can be uneasy. They're human beings too. They didn't go to school to understand this. So one of the things that I like to tell people to do, you ever hear like people when someone says, if I come to you and I have some good news and bad news, like, what do you want first, the good news or the bad news? So some people want the good news, some people want the bad news. Well,
Well, wait, what do you like? Good news or bad news
as
first?
a leader, I like to have a bad news sandwich between two good news pieces of bread. So what I like to do, if I'm facilitating a meeting where there's going to be good or bad news, like these team meetings we're talking about, start it off with some amazing good news that everyone would like. Okay. Then get into the sharing part. And like Jessica says, everybody doesn't have to share, but the sharing part could provide the bad news per se, or the uncomfortable conversations. And then you already end it with another good piece of bread, a piece of good news that you save to the end. So I think you gotta kind of make sure that they end on an emotional high. They start and end on an emotional high. So that's one thing that I've seen has worked in many different settings, not just a business setting.
Yeah.
Can I throw a quick statistic in here? Because I literally just saw this the other day that if you're looking to build a good team, okay, 80% of people really value a company that has diversity in mind. And you have actually, I think it's something like 37% higher retention rate for people who focus on those type of things. So if you're trying to build a successful team, people who focus on diversity just have a broader pool, if you will, and more success overall.
So we've discussed maybe a team that's already kind of somewhat in place. Practice owner has owned the practice, let's say 15, 20 years. What would your suggestions be for a new business owner or a business owner that's hiring new team members? There's something that we can do out of the gate so we can just figure this out. What are some of the suggestions that you have for our newer doctors or our newer hires?
So first thing out the gate is the owner of the business has to do a self-assessment. And
Has to be what?
has to do a self-assessment. They have to
Okay.
assess where their strengths and weaknesses are. They have to be hyper aware of their blind spots. Okay. This is something I'm really big on with all, especially small business owners. If you're starting a business, you've got to hire people that don't just have the technical skill to do the job that you're hiring for. They should also have some of the soft skills that you don't have. Okay, so if Jessica knows that she is neurospicy, she probably does not want to hire a whole staff of neurospicy people. Okay, that may not work very well. She's going to need some balance. She's going to need some diversity in the temperament and personality of the people that she hires, and that goes for everything. So if you do an assessment, and like I said, there's tools out there. I know you're involved with that, Jamie. If you do an assessment of yourself, and then make these assessments part of the pre-screening of every applicant. I love when you're looking for that personality cultural fit first. It will solve so many
Mm-hmm.
problems. I am from the school of thought, unless you hire for culture and then train for skill. That's just how everything should be done. So I
Yeah.
think all of this is so much easier when you're starting a new practice or building a team from scratch than if you're trying to fix something that already may be broken.
Yeah. And I think that if I can add in there, I do strength finders, and I've always done it after the team's been hired, and as one of my coaching things. And I just had I have a team that's gone through a lot of change on the team, and they now are saying, we want you to do strength finders. We'll pay for it before we hire them. And what happened accidentally, but maybe or subconsciously without knowing, was the doctor had her strengths, her top 10, and then she finally got an associate doctor. And when we did their strengths, they had the almost identical exact opposites of the top 34
That's
strengths. So it was really, really great. The problem is that the owner doctor is very much more rip the band-aid off type, like Jessica, where the other one is a woo like me and positivity and and so when it comes to the thing that we uncovered was that when it comes to team issues that are emotionally based, we figured out which doctor would be better to handle those in general. And so I think that, the diversity of even personalities and how you like to be approached and how you like to communicate about things is important. What do you have to add to this, Jessica, as to what Brandon just brought up?
Well, it's funny, I'm actually a woo too. So I think that also highlights the fact that you can have, different ways of handling situations and still be the same personality type, right? But it is super important to have somebody who is not exactly like you. I think I completely agree with that. But I also think that starting from the beginning is ideal, right? So if you implement team building is crucial no matter what, whether
Mhm.
it's DEI, if your team does not understand your culture and does not work well together, you're not going to be successful. So if you implement these team building strategies on a regular basis and you build that into your business plan, then you are going to be more likely to succeed. If you have once a month team building, like a potluck. A potluck is, everybody loves a potluck, but it can be so meaningful because you can learn so much about your team. So potlucks, food is culture, right? Every
Yeah.
culture has their own food. And if you encourage a cultural potluck where you bring a dish that actually means something to you or your culture or your community and make that kind of a learning experience and allow
Mhm.
people to communicate why they brought what they brought and what it means to them,
Yeah.
and to really kind of interact with that. If you do that from the beginning, you're establishing that culture and you don't have to bring it in later, right? You
I
don't have to work
love
hard
that.
to
I
implement
love
it.
that potluck idea. Everyone
We
can
all
bring a
love
favorite
food.
recipe. And some people, maybe it's a recipe,
Yeah,
maybe their mother, like me, didn't
yeah,
cook and,
right. You can
and
buy it. You
yeah,
don't have
and
to.
we came from a Mormon pioneer, and
Oh,
so if
wow.
I had an aunt though that was an exceptional cook, and I can remember
Yeah,
when we'd go to Christmas brunch at her house, there was Swedish pancakes because
yeah,
she has Sweden in her, and so we always had Swedish pancakes at that
yeah.
brunch. But I love that idea. I think it's great.
You just
Um,
have to be intentional with it, I think
Yes.
is the key, because you can say, we're going to have a potluck and people will bring whatever. But if you are intentional with that potluck and say,
mhm.
we want to learn about you through this potluck, bring some food that means something to you and let's talk about it, then you're team building, but you're also learning their
Yeah.
cultural importance.
I love it. I love that. I think that we have some great topics and things here that in nuggets from taking the ache out and putting the heart back in. I really believe that we have a opportunity with what you guys are doing, and this is why I wanted to get you on the Heart of Dentistry with me, is that we need more people like you and even like me. Everyone thinks that I don't have anything to say. I'm this white woman that maybe people think has been privileged her whole life, whatever it might be. And where do I step in as Jamie Marboe Nichols into this arena? Well, let me tell you, I do. I stand, and if it isn't for me necessarily, it's for the people who don't feel like they have a voice, and they don't feel like they have the strength to fight it. And so this leads me to my one of my last questions is one of the things that you guys brought up on the panel that I think this is really, really important is when you're approached with a certain question, because this happened to me at a convention I was at, where a person that looks like me, close to my age, asked another colleague of ours why she asked her a certain question, and it had to do with touching somebody's hair of a different
Mm.
nationality, and why is that so offensive? And the reaction, unfortunately, from the colleague was, well, why would you even ask that question? That is just, why would you touch your hair? So my other friend that asked the question felt dumb. She felt like, okay. And I said to my friend that answered in a way of, why would you even ask that question? I said to her, it's responses like that that make people stop asking. And you guys brought up, when is the time as a person that's being approached, when to pivot, when to answer, when to circle back around and answer. Let's give some breath to that as our final do's and don'ts, and to those people that are maybe, I have a lot of my friends that look like me that for some reason come to me with these diversity questions. And so I just want to hear, because I'm sure with you guys being on that panel and stuff, you had such a great answer for that. So Branden, why don't you go ahead and start out and tell us what it is and when to answer for the person that's being approached.
Yeah, it's one, some people get approached with these types of questions more than others. Depending on how many diversity boxes you may check off, you're going to be approached with these things that could be offensive or annoying, or what really it comes down to is tiresome for the person that's being approached. A lot of times that short fuse that you may have, if you're the person being approached, is because you are tired. Okay. So I think the way you handle this happens way before you're approached. It is, you need to basically be deliberate about having your own protocols when it comes to just interacting with people on a day-to-day basis. And one of mine is don't hate, educate. So I look for,
say it one more time.
don't hate, educate. I look for
Okay.
opportunities.
Don't hate, educate.
I
love
look
that.
for opportunities to educate people who genuinely want to be educated, because I understand that whatever discrimination, indifference, whatever, anything that I could possibly go to, or any person that fits any marginalized group could go to experiences, you got to take the focus off the people saying and doing it and focus it on the fact that this is a negative force of energy that has infiltrated our world. And if you do that, you won't attack the person first. Okay. Now, are there scenarios where a person is being intentionally mean and hurtful and deserves to be attacked? Yes. But it's rarely, if a person is asking a genuine question, and if they're asking you, there's a reason that they're asking you. They obviously respect you enough and feel comfortable enough with you to ask you this type of question that could be a little bit sensitive. So the first thing you have to do is have that own protocol. I don't like to say policy, I say protocol. Shout out to Dr. Paul Goodman. He actually taught me that. Don't say policy, say protocol. So you have to have your own personal protocols on how you navigate through life, that you are going to look for opportunities to educate and not return with anger and hatred. So that's the first thing that I would say. The second thing I would say is, if you are in a space where it's just one of those days and you just are not in the mood for it, it's okay to walk away. Okay. It's okay to just not talk about it.
Just turn around and walk away.
Or at least say, listen, this is not something I feel comfortable talking about right now. Maybe we can talk about this another time.
I like that.
Fine.
Okay.
I've been in those situations and I've handled it both of those ways. Okay. So there was a scenario where I was at a conference. I was at a dinner. Okay. After a conference, a lot of these conferences, you have these networking dinners and things that happen afterwards. And listen,
there's cocktails involved.
It was that I was about to say, we were eating, we were drinking, and we were being merry. Okay. There was a lot of cocktails involved. And I was with a group of people that I do business with, and a couple coworkers. And one of these people that I did business with, and this is a Caucasian person, had decided to ask in front of a very diverse group of people. There were people there from all different cultures, including African Americans. He questioned the legitimacy of the concept that only Black people can use the N-word.
Now, that only Black people can
use the N-word. Okay. Oh. Now, he didn't say the word, thank God, but it was obviously very off-putting to have him come out of the blue and say that in that setting where everyone is drinking. So responses are not going to be the best at that time.
No.
Luckily, I think his question sobered me up when he asked it, but I think luckily I was able to kind of say to him, listen, this is not the time or place to have this discussion. And he pushed back a little bit and said, no, because he was drinking a lot. And I said, listen, and I said his name, which obviously I won't say here. I was like, we're not going to have this discussion here. Let's either change the subject or, let's just end this dinner. So luckily, that was how it was handled. But so that was an example where, yes, it was not going to be a.
Well, and thank goodness you had the clairvoyancy right there at that moment.
I literally think I was so shocked it clairvoyanted me up with the way you said it. So I'll pass this on to Jessica.
Okay, Jessica, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So there's a time to walk away with, at least this is what you said, your explanation. And then there's a time to just I mean, you probably wouldn't circle back around to that person and say, "Oh, here's now what I think," because that was in the wrong setting, and he or she probably does was embarrassed. But there's another opportunity here, Jessica. What is that?
Um, so I'm big on educating, right? So you can further reinforce stereotypes, or you can be the person to instill some sort of change, right? And we've all unfortunately been in situations where we've been forced to almost be the representative of our culture or our sex or our neurodiversity or whatever, right? And somebody expects you to speak for the entire lot. And do we love it? No. But is it our, I want to say responsibility, if we are in the right mindset to be the change? Absolutely, right? So you can talk about being the change, or you can actually be the change. So in my experience, it is a learning opportunity, right? It is a teaching opportunity. And if you are of the right mind and can do so, I encourage everybody to be the change. I was also in a similar situation where I was the offender, and this is kind of my catalyst to everything, where
Yeah, you opened up with this, and
I
you said, "How many
did.
here knows why she was offended?" And who doesn't? And I was like, I was shocked. I didn't know
Well,
why.
if you looked at the crowd, there was a very obvious divide as to who knew what had happened and who didn't. And I
Yes,
was at a huge event for entrepreneurs, and there was a panel and they were speaking, and people had opportunities to get up on the microphone and ask questions. And there was a particular young lady that I had kind of struck up a friendship. It was a 2 or 3 day event, and we had some lovely conversations, and she had the opportunity to get up and speak. She was a Black woman, she was younger, and she got up to speak, and she was so well spoken, to the point where I was like, are you like a newscaster? Like, she was on the microphone so comfortably, and she spoke so eloquently. And I thought that I wanted to tell her, as somebody who I had established this relationship with, that she had done so well. And afterwards, I came up to her and I said, girl, you did so well. You were so eloquent and well-spoken. And the minute well-spoken came out of my mouth, she gave me this look and just turned around and walked away. And for years, I had no idea what had happened and how I had offended her. And I was just like, well, that was weird. And then years later, I heard a young lady on TV, on the news, speaking about how offensive it is for white people to tell Black people that they are eloquent and well-spoken. And to me, anybody, like, I get up on the mic and I'm doing, like, I can't even speak, right? And so
yeah,
she gets up there and was amazing. And it had nothing to do with anything other than the fact that
yeah.
as a young woman, she was so eloquent, and she took it at what was supposed to be a beautiful moment to uplift her, in a negative way. And had she taken that time to just simply say, you know what, girl, that's a little bit offensive, and you probably don't understand, but here's why. Um, Obviously,
And
she
I
wasn't in
think,
the
and you
right
had to go
mind
all
frame for
those
that.
years before you knew.
So many years, and had I not, and then I was speaking to one of my friends, and she was like, oh, girl, yes, that is highly offensive to us. And then the more I started looking into this, the more I realized. And when I opened with this on the panel, and we did ask this question to the audience, only the Black people knew what I was talking about,
And
and
even a few
all of the
Black
other
people didn't raise their
people.
hands.
I mean, it's
Because I was looking
possible, but
around, I
for
was
the
like,
most part, almost everybody was like, I don't know. And then there was a couple of people who were like, oh, I
yeah,
know. And so it's cultural differences like that, just telling these stories that is so obvious to one group of people, and to another group, it's oblivious, because it goes back so far that
yeah,
in this generation, we don't really think about that, but it's instilled in other generations, because it's been such a pain point for so long, as if
yeah.
Black people can't have eloquent conversations. So
And I think that,
those moments are important.
and I think after that story, and after my story of that, and I have other stories that I could obviously
Oh
share. We
yeah.
could be here, honestly, like I said, we could be talking for 5 hours. But I think that the reason, so there's a time to walk away and say this subject is not has horrible timing. We've been drinking. we've got a diverse group. Not everybody's going to respond the same way. We have an opportunity to say, I would like to circle back around and call you. Can I call you next week and give you that answer? Today's not a good day for me to answer that question. And it's okay. And to a certain point, if we're up to it, we should be helping make the change by educating and not by making people feel worse, about asking. Because if you ask that person, just like my family member sharing things with me, and I'm saying, you don't have to keep saying, don't judge me. Okay, you're telling me for a reason, so I'm all ears. I'm not judging. But if I feel comfortable enough to go to you, Branden, and say and ask you a question that could be in the right setting, if you were to say to me, why would you even ask that question? That's going to
Because you
keep me from
care.
ever asking those
Right.
difficult, uncomfortable questions ever again.
Right.
Well, we need
So
to
I
understand
do.
that people ask because they care, right?
Yep.
If they didn't care, they wouldn't ask. And that's
They
the building block right there.
Yeah, they want to know and they want to learn and they want to grow, which is what I really hope people will take from this. And whether it's a a, a race type issue or whether it's a uh, something to do with age, gender, sexual orientation. There's so many more that we're not even bringing up, but I think that we've uncovered some of the pains, a lot of them, and also that it's okay to ask the questions in the right setting and be curious. Be curious about what it is that you maybe do or don't know and offer that. We are going to put in when we have this out there, we'll have how they can get a hold of you. Both of you will have your email and we'll be able to ask more questions. I'm hoping I can get you back on again. Maybe we do a follow-up once a year, once every 6 months
I
and
love it. I
see
love
how
it.
we've
That would
made
be
a
great.
change.
I love
Yeah,
it.
that would
Yeah.
be great.
Well,
And
thank you
Branden and
so
I are kind of making it a mission to, if people don't know how to start these conversations, Branden and I, we can come out to your offices, we can help you start
Right.
these conversations and get everybody together and kind of be the catalyst for that, if that's
Yeah,
something
it
that
can
you
even
don't
be
know
a
how to start.
virtual event like this.
Sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited to see where this movement goes. If there's anything I can do to help support you too, of course I'm here. And I want to thank you for being on the Heart of Dentistry, where we take the ache out and put the heart back in. Have a good day, everyone. The Heart of Dentistry Podcast, where we take the ache out and put the heart back in to our dental profession.